Hello! In this episode, we talked to Aaron Harris, a psychic medium and grief companion. We talked about his spirit guides, the work he does with clients experiencing grief, and his journey to mediumship, which is a beautiful story. I'm Lauren Leon.
And I'm Frank.
We are a married couple learning how to develop our own intuition, and this is episode 62 of Clairvoyaging. Wayfeather Media presents Clairvoyaging.
What's going on?
Hey, everybody.
How are we doing today?
I hope you're having a great day.
I hope you had a great week thus far.
Yes. I hope it's wonderful, and I hope you are wonderful.
That's a lot of hopes, and it's all for you.
We wish the best for you and nothing less.
Welcome back.
Guys, we have a good episode today.
We do have a very nice episode.
I mean, they're all great. All our guests have been incredible. Not a clunker in the bunch.
Wow.
Do they say that?
No.
Clunker?
I don't think so.
Okay. Well, I mean, we just have these guests are amazing.
It's been great.
Today it's Aaron Harris. But before we get to that, I want to remind you that there are some new little bits on our Patreon. Some of them are free for everybody.
Okay.
And some are for the paid members, our patrons.
How much is that?
Are you sure you want to know?
I know.
Okay. It's $4 per month.
That's so cheap.
How many of you are tired of hearing that bit?
He's going to do the thing again.
Oh, it's that one again.
That sucks. Hey, did you know that this is the worst part of every episode?
The intro?
No, me.
Oh. Just Frank is the worst part of every episode.
Anyway, go check it.
Don't talk about yourself that way. Frank's been getting notes from his dad.
What?
Don't talk bad about yourself.
That's true. That's true. He's only been saying it for 40 years. That's fine.
That's true. I mean, you got to listen at some point.
We've got a nice episode today. Let's talk about Aaron.
Yes. Aaron is awesome. Like, such a calming presence.
Yeah.
So kind. Just, I don't know. There was just like this sweetness to the way he speaks, and he's just lighthearted and smiles a lot. I really enjoyed talking to him too.
And the gateway to his psychic experience occurred in the editing bay, which is something that I can only hope for.
Yeah.
In the future.
Yeah.
So,
that was it's a really cool story.
Yeah.
So let's just get to it.
Yeah.
Because we don't have any more updates for you. And sometimes it's just nice to not hear us chit chat.
And yet, here we are.
Aren't we cute? Okay. Play Aaron Harris, and I hope you enjoy. Let her rip! Aaron,
hi.
Thank you for joining us on Clairvoyaging. Hi. We love to hear everyone's backstory.
Yeah,
so,
of course.
Can you tell us, how'd you get into doing mediumship and Aaron Harris Live?
Yeah. So, let's see. I've always been super duper, just into, I would say, the metaphysical or supernatural aspect of ghosts and all those cryptid aspects. And then back in 2019, my cousin tragically passed away, and I was opened, I would say that way, by curiosity, just kind of pushed me into that situation. And it really opened me up to spirit and what life and passing means. And also, I would say the cruelty that human can be to another human. And then through that trauma, I started to cope with substances to kind of numb those feelings from spirit, because I didn't really understand the deeper anxiety that was coming through. And then I shut it off completely. I didn't want to deal with that other side of afterlife yet. And then jumped to 2021, I got into videography and directing and studio set type stuff. And I was working on a documentary called Tyler. And it's about a 16-year-old who self-inflicted. And as I was editing his documentary, I kept getting validation after validation. And I was really confused. Like, I was working on the memorial scene and I kept getting like, I hope they know that I'm okay. I am still here. I hope they know how much I miss them. And I was like, what the hell? And so I opened up a Google Doc and I just started typing like everything I heard, because I was just like, kind of, it was a weird space to be in, to not understand I was listening to spirit at the time.
Yeah.
So then I just started typing, and then I read it back to myself and I'm like, am I talking to him? And I sat there kind of like, what the hell? And I told my friend at the time, I was like, hey, like, what is this? And she's like, what the heck? That's weird. You should tell his mom. So I reached out to Tyler's mom and I said, hey, like, just kind of this weird moment last night while I was editing the film. I don't know what it is. And I read it to her. And then I asked Tyler, I said, well, could I have a validation that would really like stand out? And he said, well, ask my mom what ducky means. So I was like, okay, Amanda, what does ducky mean? And then she's like, no fucking way. Like, Ducky was my brother's nickname. Only really Tyler would know that in the moment, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay. And she's like, Aaron, you're a medium. Let me put you in contact with my friend. I was like, oh, okay. So I was just kind of thrown into this world of spirit and afterlife. I mean, I watched, I would watch Teresa Caputo's Long Island Medium, and that's really only, at the time, the only really mainstream medium that I really knew of besides Matt Frazier and all those others. And I talked to her friend Erica, and she told me about my spirit guide and that I'll be able to find him soon. And so jump a couple of days later, I was like really curious what that meant, because at the time I didn't know. So I started researching. I am Chippewa Indigenous. At the time I didn't know this yet, but I looked into, I was just typed in like, because I had an image of what he looked like in my mind. And so I typed in Native American chiefs. And the first picture that really drew me was Rocky Boy. And he's a Chippewa chief from Montana. And he has a really interesting backstory. But as I was doing some research, I found an art gallery for youth. And I'm really connected with bear, and it's called Makwa. And so it shows a list. I screenshotted it all. I'll send it to you guys later. But I screenshotted the list of all the different animals and the spirit meanings. And it popped up with Makwa, and next to it, it said youth suicide. And so from there, I was like, what the hell? Because it was specifically Rocky Boy Reservation Art Gallery for Youth. And then to link those two together, I realized, oh, he put me on like this kind of path here to kind of click everything together. And now that I look back, I see all the puzzle pieces have aligned. And then jump to 2021, I found my birth family. And it turns out I'm Chippewa Ojibwe, First Nation Native American. So those puzzle pieces just all clicked in together, like with Rocky Boy. And then through my spiritual journey, as I got in touch more with my Native roots, I knew I was Native since I was a child. I've been very involved in Native culture, really loved and enjoyed the history points of it too. And then as I just kept getting into more spirituality, it started to evolve into more of a Native American spiritualism, and looking into like the culture aspects of afterlife, and then working with my guides and everything. It just really kind of turned into that. And then the mediumship, I've always had a caring heart. I've been a caregiver since probably like 13, 14 with my great-grandmother. And then from there, I started to work at facilities, and I always got put in the dementia unit because, I don't know, the men just work in the dementia unit. So I always had a soft spot for dementia and hospice care. And I thought maybe going into like hospice as a travel nurse or something with that, but my path led me here. So now I work as a medium. I do this full time. I would say I do spiritual advising, so I listen to guides and get higher guidance. My main forte is grief companionship and mediumship. So I kind of combine the two when I do my mediumship. So my main focus is grief. So Everything I talk about and learn has been through spirit. I've never really taken any classes or mentoring. I just like to listen to my guides, and I just kind of spew what they spew, and that's what I do. That's me in a nutshell. So
that's great.
That's so cool.
Real quick, unless I'm sorry if I missed it. Did your main spirit guide ever come through?
Yeah, Rocky Boy, he does. Yes.
Oh, Rock. Oh. Okay.
Yeah, I have 7 spirit guides that I work with on a daily basis.
And how do they come through for you?
So I use clairsentience and claircognizant. So I'm able to. I would say I also, the way that I listen to spirit, I channel on my left-hand side. So when I do my readings and when I work, I always look to the left. Don't know why that is. I have a couple theories. But then when I channel, I don't hear outside my peripheral. It's always comes through on the right, and that's how I hear is on the inside. The way that I hear spirit is I get names, numbers, dates, memory triggers, colors, auras, and healing messages. If you ever watch my TikTok lives, you'll hear me say that a million times to get the message out there. I do get apparitions once in a while, but usually I will get orbs or colors a lot of the time. And that's kind of how I hear spirit. They do come through very clear. I call myself telephone to heaven because the way that I listen, it's just like a phone call. I am very emotion-based when I do my readings, so I connect through emotions of spirit. I've been told, and I've also heard, like, other people mention, like, spirit doesn't feel emotion, but I feel like this work is so emotion-based. How could it not be, read through emotions? It's very interesting. Very, very interesting.
Yeah. That is funny. I've never heard anybody say that spirit doesn't feel emotions. It feels like that's maybe all they can feel to a certain extent. I was talking about how all this spiritual work is all, and emotions are all vibration based, and like, so it's funny that I haven't heard anyone say that before.
It's so
and like getting
you should punch him in the face next time you hear that.
No, it's so interesting. It's so interesting. And then there's other aspects to mediumship as well with the emotions and energy and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Like getting the emotions of how that spirit was as a human. Sometimes they're like, oh, they're coming in really angry, or
yes, exactly.
Super like they were a really happy person. So that's interesting. Did your cousin ever come through to you? Like, I know you kind of blocked. You blocked that out a little bit, but did you ever get any messages?
So I've had them come through a handful of times, mainly with his energy. That's the hard thing. I will connect with him, but I haven't fully allowed myself yet to fully hear him. I think it's kind of the trauma and my own mind kind of blocking that energy from really coming through. I've had moments and blips where I've been able to connect, but for the most part, I keep him more in the back. I haven't fully just allowed myself yet.
That is interesting. Having, the show where we talk to so many like deeply intuitive people.
Yeah.
It's funny when it seems like when you're not quite ready to, dive deeply into that trauma, it seems like they still come through every once in a while and just give you like a quick tip of the hat, as in we're good, we're good. We'll talk when you're ready, kind of thing.
Yeah. Exactly.
That's really
I know that they're always around, my cousin, and then just other loved ones and family members as well. But for the most part, I don't know. I try to keep that separate with the work and then with my own journey of healing and sobriety and all that fun stuff.
Yeah. Are you still close with the family that raised you before you met your biological family?
Oh yeah.
So you always knew that you had Native American in you? Oh,
I had a feeling. Yeah, my adopted mom really, really had this deep inkling that I was Native American. And so we were just like, oh, I wonder. And then to have that revelation of like, oh yeah, you're Chippewa. I was like, oh, what the heck? And then I had registered family with Black Earth Nation out in Minnesota. So it's pretty cool to have that come
really cool.
So with your adopted family, how did they react when you came out as a intuitive person?
Well, let's see. I've had a few coming outs. But the first one with the intuitive aspect there, I mean, they didn't seem to care. They kind of had my mom always kind of knew. I mean, I wouldn't even really say it was a coming out because I just started to get to work right as soon as I figured out this path. My partner really, I was struggling with jobs a lot of the time, so I didn't really have my sense of purpose yet. This is when I was like 26, 27. And she was like, why don't you try mediumship? And I was like, okay. So I really put myself out there from the get-go with my mediumship of, this is what I'm doing, and I'm going to just try to see where it goes. I started working on Facebook a little bit, and that's where it snowballed into going into TikTok and all the other platforms. But for the coming out aspect, I mean, my mom and my family, I don't know. They never seem to really mind. I don't think they do at all.
Yeah.
So you would say that you're like fairly supported in that?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
That's cool.
Especially my
That's
Nana.
Cool.
My Nana was super duper interested in this work. I like to think that kind of gave her some support with her passing. And she'd always ask me questions about what I do and what clients I see and what spirit life is like and who I connect with. So I like to think that gave her some sense of comfort before she.
That's really fun.
Oh, that's really cool. Yeah, to be able to like give that like sense of ease into like transitioning out of human form.
That's so I like to think that really helped her with the calmness before she passed. So that's one of the interesting.
That's so sweet.
That's huge. That's such important work.
Mm-hmm.
You having your first real mediumship experience in the editing bay.
Yeah.
I wrote down editing bay medium.
Yeah.
Being like in the zone sometimes and just turning off your brain. I could imagine how you would suddenly receive things that you might. How long were you receiving messages without even really recognizing it before you finally decided to open up that Google Doc?
So surprisingly right away, as soon as I started to hear like these other, they sounded like, because I couldn't differentiate at first. Now I can, but I was kind of like, it's not my own thoughts, because why would I be feeling the thoughts of what it was like to go through a suicide, or deeper moments with spirit. And so I was like, huh. And so right away, I'm like, let me type this down because this might be important. I think I put timestamps on it too. I think it was like, I channeled him for like 2 hours or something crazy.
Oh, wow.
I didn't realize because time kind of goes away when I do this work. So, I have like 6-7 pages of just notes in my Google of just everything I heard from him.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I was just going, but I didn't know. And then the next day too, like I was telling my the main producer of the documentary, and we ended up talking for like 6 hours about it because she was just so curious about him and what I was doing. I didn't know. I was like on fucking adrenaline, I guess.
Yeah.
At the end of it, I crashed out. I was so tired. But at the end of the documentary, there's a little secret there. Anita, the producer, asked me, does Tyler have a message for the film? And so Tyler was able to put a message of his own at the end of the film that they typed in. Nobody really knows that, but now they do. So, yes.
That's amazing.
So the message at the end of the film is Tyler.
What was the name of the film? It was Tyler?
Yeah, it's just called Tyler.
Okay.
And this mediumship just really, I got so like absorbed by it because it's so interesting. And I mean, it's my life 24/7, unfortunately. Yeah. Well, not unfortunately, but I hear it 24/7 now. So it really just is taken over in that way where it's more of even a passion than the film. But eventually I want to combine the two. That's my next big idea here in my brain, is to combine.
How about that?
Yeah.
Well, when you get the calling for mediumship and any kind of like psychic work, like it's not a silent soft call from what I understand. It's like, this is happening now. No, they throw it in my face. They're like, it's right here. You just got to listen and connect with the right people. Yeah. That's one of the things I put a lot on my plate. That's another part of mediumship that goes into mental health and mediumship, I would say. Yeah. Yeah. Such an important part of it.
So you said like it's kind of constant now. Have you figured out like your off switch?
Yeah. So I call it my, it's like a red light, green light kind of thing where it's like green light, I'm working, red light, I'm not. But the parallels are so thin with turning it off and on. It's just kind of like when I'm with my partner or just cooking or doing personal stuff, it will lessen. But when I'm working, it's loud and sometimes even that parallel will cross anyways. So say I'm shopping and I'll get like this really big pit here in my chest, and I'm just like, I know it's spirit, but like I don't want to answer the phone call because it's like I'm trying to, spend time with family or do stuff. I kind of have to force myself to disassociate almost. When I'm out there in the world. So my partner knows, especially if I give her a look, she intuitively knows like, oh shit, he's feeling spirit. Like we got to hurry up and go. Cause it's going to be like, I just get really anxious or snippy, and I don't try to be, but it's just like, if I don't find that right person, then it's like going to vomit out, And I've done that before where I've Teresa Caputo'd a few people, and it's been very interesting. Oh yeah. I love that term. I don't know. I just use it. It's the easiest one.
That's funny.
But yeah, no, I've Teresa Caputo'd a few people, and it's always been 100. But I just, sometimes inside me, I'm like, I don't want to share because you don't know how someone's going to react to hearing, hey, your grandma's here. She tells you she loves you. I know she passed last week. Like that type of stuff. You don't want to just look at someone who's working or doing their own thing. But I've done it a few times, and it's been very positive. I'll usually give a business card. I don't have them on me right now, so I'm making more. But that is one of the big things I try to keep on hand as a business card, because I don't want to interrupt someone's day. I just want to be like, hey, if you want a free session with me, here you go. So that's what I've done a few times, is I just give my card out. But it is really hard to not listen to that call of the void over here on my left-hand side.
So interesting. See, Lauren, every time I'm being kind of mean to you, it's just because I'm feeling something I need to. Yeah, that's it. Thank you. Wink, wink.
It's spirit, huh? All right. I know who to blame now, I guess.
Tips here.
It's interesting. The brain thing. We had a
what brain thing?
He said that he channels on the left.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm. I have a few theories. I loved. Yeah. I have a theory of why that is.
We had one of our guests, Jeff Tarrant, is a brain. He studies brains. I can't think of
interesting
brain
studier.
Uh-huh.
And he studied. Do you know Laura Lynn Jackson?
I feel like I've heard of them. Yes. Maybe.
Okay. Anyway, she wrote a really cool book called Signs. But he studied her brain when she's doing psychic work. It's on one side, and when she's doing mediumship, it's on the other side.
Oh, how interesting!
There's something to that. Huh. I don't have more information than that because I can't remember exactly.
Well, what's your theory?
My theory with oh boy, I did this the other night with my friend because we were just getting into it. But so my theory is with the right left side. So I know that the right side, this is all the creative. Our right side of the mind is creative, open. Yeah. So that's where like you can go into that meditative space. And the right side is very like logical, thinker, math. You had to make sense of the world. So I like to think that the reason why I look to the left, it's also kind of like a little funnel here. So my creative open side is open anyways, all the time, 90% of the time, 99% of the time at this point. And so I'm thinking that with the theory is that because this is always open, my right side doesn't really have time to process the logical, analytical side of it. So then when I'm doing mediumship, the reason why I look to the left is that is the easiest point for me to study and focus in on using my right, but the left is open anyways. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Wow.
It does.
Yeah. So the right side's hyper-focused and really using my mathematical side to listen and like focus in on something, but I'm hearing it on technically it's on the right, but I don't look to the right at all when I do my reads. It's always the left.
Yeah. Okay.
So interesting.
This is making me I felt the brain tingles for a second.
Yeah.
I am not. We don't want to say we're not psychic. We say we're practicing because we're practicing. We're practicing on getting better.
Because we've been scolded by certain mediums. Because like, everyone's psychic.
Everyone's psychic.
Like, okay, sorry.
That's one of the big things that I teach my clients and my students is there is no it's a spectrum. There's no level of like you're not completely closed or you're completely open. Every single person on earth has some intuitive ability to some degree, whether that's instincts or intuition or even psychic medium. Everyone has those gifts. It's just opening it up and being around those like-minded individuals as well. I've noticed there's also another subject here. The correlation of trauma and mediumship is also super interesting to get into.
Yeah.
Oh, there's so many subjects. And that's why I love this work. I love it. I'm a sponge. So
we talk a lot about trauma healing on this show.
Yeah, big correlation. Oh my god.
It's really, it's so fascinating.
So hold on, let's actually.
I'm sorry, I give you so many subjects.
No, it's fantastic.
I love it.
Fantastic.
Love it.
So, what I was going to say about my brain is that I realized that because I always talk about how heady I am, and that I know that it's causing like roadblocks. It's just I'm overthinking stuff. Roadblocks to connecting more deeply with my level of intuition. Mm-hmm. And you made me realize just now that I'd say 90% of the time I feel you can't feel your thinking, but it feels very on the right side. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
And I look to the right a lot just when I'm thinking, and I never like look to the left. And even just doing it right now to think, it feels super awkward and uncomfortable. And I think I need to start firing up. All of my creativity comes in the form of like, music or editing or whatever it might be. And I haven't used my left. I don't think I use the left side of my brain just when I'm existing. And I wonder what would happen.
Well, when you're editing, you're using the left side of your brain because it's a creative. And you're using your hands. Anything that uses your hands, like building, editing, that opens up that left side as well.
I do that enough. I have some things to try. You gave me some ideas. Thank you.
Yeah, good. Even Legos, anything that just opens it up,
I'm big on Legos.
You were a Lego kid.
I was a Lego kid in a big way.
I had a feeling. Something. Say Lego.
So let's talk about trauma for just 1 second, but let's talk about trauma in the direction that you're working it more frequently. And that is, you're talking about dementia care.
Yeah. My dementia.
So this is always, I feel like at a certain age, everyone's brains start falling apart, and like in the final phase of things, but I'd say like 90% of people experience some form of like, lowering brain function that could like be, dementia and like Alzheimer's is almost a blanket statement at some point.
Oh yeah.
The doctors use that pretty loosely. From your experience, what is going on with dementia patients?
That's an interesting question. So with dementia, I know that it's like the cognitive function slows and just the brain function just kind of turns into again, a puddle. This is the best word I can think of. Unfortunately, there is like a really interesting aspect working with dementia people where I'm like, I wonder if there is the veil between spirit world and the dementia is very thin. And so that's why they have those. I know that hallucinations are a scientific aspect to it, but I also wonder in a spiritual aspect if the hallucinations are actually more of them getting closer to spirit world. And I kind of wonder about that as well.
Yeah. We wondered that.
Yeah. 1 foot in, 1 foot out.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, but also if like because we've talked about too, how we always wonder if trauma that is unhealed, like kind of makes part of your brain, like if you're locking away memories,
I would say so.
Hard to process. Your brain kind of protects itself and starts to.
But without that protective layer of cognitive thinking, because our brain constantly is like working hard to mask that trauma. I'm wondering also, that's a good point too, that dementia maybe thins that. So then the trauma becomes more prevalent as well, I would think.
Yeah.
So what do you do with patients? Like, what is your work like with them?
Well, so I haven't worked with dementia in 4 to 5 years now.
Oh, okay.
But when I was working with them, I would say very intuitive based, because I could understand like their erratic and complex emotion to a T. So I was kind of able to maneuver myself as a helper and caregiver of them a little easier, I would say, because I understood their wants and their needs more, where, you know, she can't cognitively say like, I want a hug or love or affection, but the signals in my mind would be like, oh, okay, she wants a hug. So kind of like that, using my own intuition of understanding what they need. As a caregiver though, mentally, emotionally, it was a lot of physical work that I'm glad I left that field, because it was just destroying not just my back, but just my, also the emotional side of it was just very heavy for me. And I think that's part of the intuition, because we constantly had to deal with the physical passings and physical death. That's kind of what I also mentioned too, with like working with spirit now, is I get to be a caregiver with human earth plane people, but now I'm almost a caregiver with the aftermath of it as well, where now I get to help those who've passed find the care and the emotional support and the healing that they need. Not saying that this work is any tiring, because, Lord knows I can sleep for 12 hours and still be tired. But there is that really interesting aspect to it, where I see the same similar parts of the healing journey for both physical and non-physical, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you also mentioned grief companionship. Is that what that is?
Yeah. So for grief companionship, it's more of a newer concept that I'm kind of putting into my work. I mean, my work has been grief focused since the day I started this, just with what I've gone through in my life, and knowing that community and grief support is one of the biggest things that we can, build community is really the foundation of what I'm doing. Aside from mediumship and grief help, with my grief companionship, my focus is more shifted to working almost like a personal liaison for someone who's really going through that heavy grief journey, whether that's 1 month. I break it down into one-on-one sessions, 1 month, 3 months, 6 month, 12 month, and 15 month. And that's kind of how I break it down. Again, with kind of numerology focused in there a little bit.
Interesting.
Yeah, just a sprinkle. So then the way that I work with the grief companionship is that I'm there pretty much 5 to 7 days a week, one session a week, depending on what their needs are, with spirit. And this is where I involve spirit. So with my spirit guides, there is one specific for grief. Her name is One Who Heals and Cries. And so she does trance mediumship, as well as Leon. But I haven't worked with trance mediumship in a while. But anyways, back to the grief focus. So One Who Heals and Cries really helps with the healing messages and spiritual connection on what they need in the moment. So we go through a list of goals that they want to focus on throughout the month, or whatever plan they choose. And then from there, each session is kind of tailored to that specific goal. And we could even do like a bi-weekly goal if that's a really big need. But I always try to incorporate like worksheets or journal prompts. And sometimes it's just talking. So a lot of the times these clients sign up for grief companionship, and all it is just us really just hanging out, talking about spirituality and what it means to grieve. And then we go through a little bit of mediumship sometimes, because when I connect with them, no matter what, spirit's going to come through. So our conversations always have a little bit of mediumship thrown in. It's really interesting to do grief
companionship. That's a really beautiful service to provide someone. Like, I'm just thinking about, I lost my brother 20 years ago, and that's such a powerful thing. You said like sometimes it's just talking, and sometimes that's all you need, and going through that grief process is so lonely.
Exactly.
It's so individual.
Mm-hmm.
And just having someone that like is literally just there to support your grief journey is what a gift. That's such a great service to provide.
That is really cool.
Yeah. And that's kind of where like that line really splits between mediumship and grief, because the way that I do my mediumship, I want people to know like I'm not just a medium. I also can be, you know, a companion or a friend as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I like to blend those two. Sometimes it's a little difficult to build the boundary because I'm friendly and I'm talkative and I love to laugh. So finding that boundary is a little difficult sometimes. But for the most part, I really enjoy the community aspect and really helping someone from start to finish in their grieving path. And I have people reach out to me even when I first started, and I see the major shift in how they view the world and how they are going through their grief. And that's what I love to see, is when they come reach back out to me and I see just changes on Facebook. You know, I see them going through life and they're healing and doing a lot better than they were from point A. But there are those clients that are so deep in grief that, you know, the changes aren't as apparent, you know, and that's kind of the harder part, I would say.
You might be the only person doing beneficial work on Facebook. I left a long time ago because I'm like, this place is vitriol. But
I used Facebook first. When I first got into this, I was burned real bad. But Facebook is a little competitive, I've noticed, just different groups and all that. So I don't work on Facebook as much. I want to get into it again because that's where my foundation started and I built community first. But I really try to utilize all social media. I mean, I have people from Facebook who followed me to TikTok. I have people from TikTok who followed me to Facebook. And now I'm trying to implement YouTube, but, you know, that's a whole beast in itself. So I'm just trying to get all the check boxes and get everything set up for my plan B over here. So it's just getting these little steps to plan B is the hardest part right now, from what I've noticed. I'm very
How do you energetically protect yourself from these, like, I mean, this is really heavy emotional stuff. Yeah. Do you have like any kind of process to just empathically kind of protect your own emotions, carrying this with you?
A lot of the time it's, I would say it's compartmentalization a little bit. But I paint a lot. I draw a lot.
Oh, cool.
I would say, kind of spirit's funny. So sorry. Again, it's always here. But I paint a lot. I draw a lot. You know, the devil couldn't catch me, but he gave me the gift of creation through copying. So I love creating art that's already been, you know, characterized or done before. So that's kind of what I do, is I just love to paint, and that's really a place where I can escape. Spend time with my dog, partner. I'm not really outdoorsy. I probably should be. Video games.
Listen, cooking. You're an editor. You're fine.
Yeah. Anything.
There's no window in this room, so I know what it's like out there.
Perfect. Sleeping is a really big escape. That's kind of where I emotionally detach, and I can really breathe. I do burn out quite a bit, though, and I think that stems mostly from my own depression and my own healing that I'm doing. But the emotional impact of what I hear every single day, I don't know. I just kind of live alongside it and cope in my own ways. You know, I don't know. It's just what I go through, I guess. But that's what I would answer to that question. That's what I think. Yeah. I mean, there's really no definitive, like, you know, I cut it off. I don't talk to anyone because my work is 24/7. So it's like,
right.
I don't know. This is just how I'm living. I don't know if that's the healthiest, but it's working great now.
You mentioned that during your like grief companionship sessions that you kind of help people set goals sometimes. Can you give me an example of like what a goal would look like?
Yeah. So one of the goals, let's see. One of the goals that I've had for my clients, and this could be grief in any way, shape, and form. So this could be even someone reaching out for like they lost their job. So I had a client who lost their grandmother, lost their job, was going through all these changes all at once. And they really just wanted someone to help them find that purpose in life where they could move on to a different path that would kind of almost shape their new life, I would say, after loss. And so, like, a pros and cons list of like what they enjoy. And then that's kind of how I would help pinpoint. But then also connecting with spirit, I also do oracle cards a little bit too. But my main focus when they're like, oh, I need help with career, I'll listen with spirit. And then from there, like, again, with like the creative aspect. So a lot of the time spirit says like getting into creative mindset will help them find what they need to do in life.
So it sounds like almost like you help them ground themselves again.
Yeah. Grounding and anchoring, and then helping them figure out what they need to do next.
That's awesome.
How does the one who heals and cries, is that your guide?
Yeah.
How does she support this? How does she support your clients? Like, how do you, is it like, oh, she's coming in and like, she's going to give me a little guidance on what to say or what the needs?
When I work with my spirit team, and that also kind of goes into the protection aspect a little bit too. So when I first started this, and just in general, I always have asked them to bring me people of love and light and who need healing. And so that's also kind of like that protective buffer there. So I know what I'm doing is to focus on healing. So like how I know she's here to support the journey of healing, I hear her voice. So I definitively can hear an elderly woman speaking when I'm really tuning in to listen. A lot of the times when they're here, they're here 24/7 and they're just up in this space. It's not even that I hear a specific guidance from either or. It's just like in my soul, I know, okay, this healing message is from one who heals and cries, or I know this message is from your brother, or I know this message is from Rocky Boy. And then that's kind of how I work with spirit. The guidance that one who heals and cries gives, it's usually, I want to say it's more of like, I don't want to say healing messages, but just the way in the way that I read, it's just more of, you can just tell it has a higher guidance to it than just like my own self and the way that I talk and the way that I speak. Sometimes the way that she speaks will kind of be reiterated through the way that I speak. and that's kind of where you can tell the difference in who I'm working with. Rocky Boy
that's not my language.
Rocky Boy is more stern and harsh, but so is one who heals and cries. They tell it like it is, and there's really no sugarcoating. And that's also kind of the hard part for me, where I want to remain professional and also friendly. So I don't like to say the harsh words or cussing even. But, loved ones have their own personalities, and that's who they are here is who they are there. And so that's where it's kind of difficult for me to blur that part when I do readings and connections.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. I hope that answered your question. I went on a tangent and then
it did.
Blanked.
No.
Okay.
Can you describe your relationship with Rocky Boy?
Oh yeah. Oh boy. So he is more of, I would say, I'll tell you each one. So I have Rocky Boy. He is more of a, I would say more of like a protective fatherly type. But even then, when I listen, I don't. That's an interesting point there. I don't fully like, hi, Rocky Boy. Like, I will do that, but I won't. I haven't in a long time. They're just all collectively here. But Rocky Boy is, again, more of the protective nature. When I do connect with him, he does speak more gruff and more like, this is what you're doing and you need to knock it off kind of feeling.
Yeah.
Whereas one who heals and cries comes through with more of the softer tone healing, more of a sassier note in the way she speaks.
Gotta love some sass.
Oh, I do. She's so funny. And she's always on Nayeli's side, my partner. She's always on her side. I'm like, damn it, come on here. And they all go against me but I'm usually wrong when that happens.
That's funny.
Of course.
And then Leon, he's more quiet. He usually comes through with healing through song. So he'll channel it through trance mediumship. And then there's Tyler, and he comes in once in a while. He's not really a guide, but he's there still.
Is that the same Tyler as the doc?
Uh-huh.
That's awesome.
So he's just kind of stuck around in that way.
Cool.
I think because it was like the catalyst of my spirituality and my mediumship that he just kind of stuck around. So he'll come through. And then I have Jericho and Kinetic. So this part is kind of where like it gets a little woo-woo, and that's even like, for me a little bit. But Jericho and Kinetic, they are my celestial guardians. So the term alien.
We just had a whole series of episodes about the Galactic Federation. So
yeah. So
this is new to us still, but we get it.
So Jericho and Kinetic, I would say they are just so fascinating. But I keep those ones. They're like, you have your spirit guides here, and then I have my celestial guardians. They're the same, but I keep a definitive line. And then I have Lillian, who's a spirit guide. She's of my Celtic Irish descent.
Oh, cool.
One who heals and cries is also Native American. I also found her last Earth plane life as well, so I have photos of what she looked like.
No way!
What?
Wait, could you send that to us?
Yeah, I'll share it too.
I've always wondered about that. If you were able to like backtrack that kind of thing, it seems
Rocky Boy was also a person in history, so I have his photos as well.
Please,
amazing.
Yeah,
that's so cool.
Leon, he was more Great Plains Native American. I want to say Comanche, but I haven't found any. I haven't done research on him yet, or at all. Who else? Lillian.
These are incredible names.
These are good names. It's a good team.
Rocky Boy. Oh, I know. It's beautiful work too. Feathers Facing the Sun. So I went through a very big transitional phase when I moved back home to California, and it was like just this end of a cycle where I was like moving home and finding my place back home here. And she came through as the Hopeye Sun God. So I got, my cousin has a tattoo of the other half.
Oh, neat. That's so awesome.
Cool.
Yeah. And then I work with spirit animals. So I work with bear, and then I also work with bison. And then my dog, Bucky, he is my grounding magnet here to Earth plane. So he keeps me grounded, and he'll help me with my spirit work as well. Whenever I need like a little energy boost, he'll always come over. He's always by me when I'm working too, like just reciprocation of energy.
That's fantastic.
It's quite nice.
So this is actually a really good point. I have a question.
Yeah.
This is a good time to ask it. Because it seems like a lot of your spirit team are like Native American. How much of your personal culture, of our personal cultures, is an important part of our spirit team or our spiritual guidance moving forward?
I would say almost every aspect.
Really?
I would say almost every aspect, because when you look at past lives, or just also just the lineage that you have or heritage, there's going to be some sort of influence in your spirit team from your ancestors at any given point. Does that make sense?
No, yeah, it does.
It's interesting to think about.
It does. I don't know why, for some reason, and maybe this is my like toxic individualism or something, but I always like kind of kept that kind of stuff separate. Mm-hmm. I am half Cuban and like basically half Scottish, right? So, but I don't super identify as being Cuban because I grew up in a very white culture. I mean, look at me, hear me. But I have family who like are still very much steeped in that culture and that tradition. So I've always been like, I guess I'm just unnecessarily disassociated from that heritage element of it all. And then same thing, my like, very white Scottish side of the family, like I don't have a lot of connection culturally to that because they came from Chicago. So like I think, oh, cool, Chicago. Like I don't think much beyond that.
Yeah.
But I bet once you learned the names of your spirit guides, you'd be like, oh, okay.
I mean, I am so jealous of your spirit guides' names at the very least. Like every single one of them could be a band name.
Like, there's a really interesting teaching point too with learning your spirit guides' names. It's not as complicated as you would think. If you need help, let me know. It's super easy. So what I'll teach you real quick.
Sure, please.
Yeah, you guys can do it also when like after the podcast or whatever. But what you do is you close your eyes and then you just do really 3 big deep breaths, and then you can ask in your mind's eye or out loud, can the first spirit guide who's followed me from birth to now, can you give me your name? And then the first name that you hear, you can attach to your spirit guide, and whether that evolves or changes later on, at least now you have something to call upon when you're working with spirit or wanting to connect in meditation. And sometimes it could be a family member who's passed. And that's kind of where the ancestral or the heritage or culture aspect could come into play a little bit.
That is very interesting.
I did one meditation one time. Frank knows this. And I said, I was like just about to fall asleep. And I said, is anyone like in here with me?
Yeah.
And his male voice said, or I was like, what's your name? And he said, Stefan. And I said, okay.
Now remind me, did you hear that?
I heard a male voice.
Like with your ear.
In my brain. Okay. Not outside my ear, in my brain.
That's how I hear.
A male voice said, Stefan.
I don't think he likes you doing the impersonation.
Probably not. Sorry,
that's just a swing. I don't know.
And I said, what do I need to know? Or something like that. And he said, keep going. I was like, there's no way I made that up because I had never heard that.
That's how I feel about my mediumship when I connect with clients. So I do a majority of my readings on TikTok Live. About 99% of them. They want to, that's one of the other things with the right now theory, and also like our attention spans are so blip, nothing. Yeah. So I do all my readings on TikTok. That's just been the easiest way for me to get clients. And then I do private session, but the ratio is not there. But with TikTok Live, it's just crazy how you can get validation just through a chat. It's really mind blowing, you know.
Do you do spirit led, or are you doing like, I'm going to choose based on like who's in the chat?
Yeah. So with my way that I work, spirit led is just too loud because it's just too loud for me to really pinpoint who's here. Cause my chat depends. The most people I've had was 600, but it's been very little. I get like 50 to 100 people in my chats at a time. And it jumps. So it's like it could be less or more in like a minute. And spirit led just is so difficult. So what I do is I build a list. Whoever wants to pay gets on my list, and that's how I do my readings. I'll only do maybe 5 to 10 clients live just to make it a little easier on me energy wise. And then I'll go through that list, and each one gets about 10 to 15 minutes. Sometimes it's more because I can't just stop at the 5 minutes.
Yeah.
I like to ramble, and so they really get more minutes than allotted. As a little secret tip there, but when I connect with spirit, the validations, it's just crazy, and the definitive of who's who. I really try to keep it to one person, like one spirit entity, because it's just too much. If it's like they have like a list of like 4 people they want to connect with, or they come through with like I have clients who will come through with like a grocery list of who they want to connect with in those 10 minutes. Wow. I can only pull as much as I can, So sometimes I'll speed run it and I'll try to get validations for each, but it is so difficult. And that's the other part too. I wish people understood how hard this work was. Yeah. So my focus on my TikTok, I'm going to start to try to just do like daily vlogs of day in my life, or like, this is what I'm doing today. I don't know how to do that yet. Content is very difficult, but I want people to see, like, I'm not just a medium. Like, yes, I do connect with people who've passed, but I also go through my own emotions, my own mental health, my own healing. And so that's also one thing I make very clear with clients, at least I try to, and the community I'm building, that, hey, I'm also a human too. I'm not just a telephone. But you got to respect the person too. I think that's one of the hard parts with seeing mainstream mediums working, is they get all the expectations and this is what you're getting and this is who I am, and very showboaty, but there is like a person behind that as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Important to note.
But, for
trying to figure out like your spirit guides names and stuff like that, Dude, I just 0% trust my imagination. My brain's always firing, and I will come up with my lead spirit guy's name is Carl's Jr. And I'll be like, I'm gonna call you Carl's Jr. now. And of course, on East Coast, that's Hardee's. So, like, how have you been able to develop like your ability to separate your imagination from what you're actually receiving? Or do you just go with it, and if there's a course correction later on, you just accept that?
I just go with it.
Yeah.
I don't know. They've just kind of come to me, and I'm like, okay, that's who you are. All right.
Frank's going to be like, it's Carl's Jr.
Yeah.
It's Slim Jim.
Slim Jim.
That could be like a cowboy figure or something.
But like,
that's a good question. Yeah, I mean, I honestly, my imagination, that's interesting. Because like, I have imagination, but like, it's too real and grounding and anchoring to be just my imagination at this point.
Yeah. Whoa. Yeah. Yeah.
It's so interesting.
I'm not second guessing your ability. I'm second guessing my ability.
No, but it's a good point though, because like, how do you know that it's not you being crazy or kooky or congrats, Aaron, you're that's bananas. But no, it's interesting. That is an interesting point. But no, I mean, I just go with it if that's what they're giving me, and that goes into how to build your intuition. There's 3 aspects there of trust, self, and pain, and those 3 things can help you open up with spirit. When you trust, you just have to trust with what you're hearing, and that's what it's going to be. That's
trust.
Yeah,
self and pain.
Trust, self, and pain. Can you go through that real quick?
Yeah. So with trust, self, and pain, 3 ways to open your psychic or intuitive abilities. So trust, if you can't trust yourself, your instincts, or your own power, then how would you trust another person or the messages that you receive? So that's lesson number 1 is trust. So just trusting the voices that you're hearing here and trusting here with your heart. So it's just like, you can't go into a medium reading with expectations. You just really have to go in with an open heart, open mind to what you're receiving. And that's how I do my mediumship is, what and I used to be very anal about that too, but now I've learned like I can't. I just have to give them what I hear and hope that it sticks, because at some point it will. If it doesn't right away, in the next couple of days it will. Right. The next one is self, and that's self-care, self-reflection. When you love yourself, care for yourself, and truly at the center of self, not necessarily self-centered, then you'll start to heal from grief, have a more joyful life, and open spiritually. So one of the second teachings, especially big in my grief teachings, is self-care. And that's not just like, cooking or watching TV or taking a bath. It's like that deep soul self-care that you're taking care of yourself. And that's what's going to help with your grief and everything. And then pain, that would necessarily be working on trauma, shadow work. Could also be a little bit of physical pain if you think that would also fit there for you. So you have to sit with your pain and get to know it. Yes, it's uncomfortable to face it, but physical, death, addiction, and own mistakes, actions are all counted as pain. But you can also grow and work with it, and holding on to pain can lead to anger and so on. But with pain and with grief, one of the other big teachings that I teach is you have to learn to live alongside grief, and that it's not, people say that they want the closure, they're coming to me to get closure with their loved one, but you're chasing a unicorn with closure, because you're not going to find it. You just have to learn to have learn to build a new sense of normalcy with the grief in your life and how to move forward. And that's where a lot of people lose that stepping stone, because they're so hyper, and especially with society, very focused on closure basis, but you're not going to find closure ever.
Yeah. There's no end to grief.
And that's one of the big things I try to teach people, whether that lands and whether that works and, people want to listen, then that's kind of what I teach with that as well.
All important things.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Aaron, please give everybody your plugs. Tell them where to find you.
Oh yeah. So you can find me on TikTok at Aaron Harris Live. You can go to my website, aaronharrislive.com. I also offer a free grief support once a month. And I'm also opening up an LGBT grief support group as well once a month. Hopefully that's in the works.
That's fantastic.
And classes found on the website, private sessions found on the website. Everything is on my website pretty much. YouTube, pretty much all social media, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, all the same handle, Aaron Harris Live.
Thank you so much for spending time with us and telling us your story.
Yeah, this has been a great conversation. Yeah. All right, we'll definitely talk to you soon. Keep in touch and send us some of those cool things that you collected.
Yeah, I'll send you some links.
Thank you, Aaron. Talk to you soon.
Aaron.
Good one.
Bye.
Right, cool.
Bye.
Thank you for listening. Visit clairvoyaging.com for merchandise or to access free resources to help you on your spiritual journey. Subscribe to our Patreon for more content or join for free to chat with us. Clairvoyaging is a fiscally sponsored project of Fractured Atlas, a 501c3 charity. Make a tax-deductible donation to support our mission to foster understanding, respect, and curiosity for diverse spiritual belief systems. Clairvoyaging is a production of Wayfeather Media.